Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Commexis Cast Daily for Thursday, November 16th, 2017. All the news you need to know from our inbox to yours. I'm Matthew McGroarty, the videographer and podcaster here at Commexis, and today I am joined by the lead strategist at Commexis, Philip Brooks.
Good morning.
And the president of Commexis, Len Ward.
Good morning.
So our first story today, we're going to be going very briefly over Brandzy's new top 100 companies list.
Yeah, there's a lot of data here, but I think we just want to talk about the elephants in the room. Google, Apple, Amazon, and no surprises there, lead the most valuable brands list. Just some of the numbers are a little bit, they pop out at you. Just from Google's value increased 17% to $286 billion over last year's. Apple grew 19% to $279 billion. And looks like Amazon grew 19% at $165 billion, and Amazon was the clear winner in growth at 2.662%. So wow. I think we've seen a lot of reasons why Amazon might be in that role. I think right now, as we've said multiple times, there's nobody pushing them for their role in that vertical. Len said many times, obviously Walmart is somebody that we think is going to make a push for that, but right now they're the only ones out there doing what they do, and they've become kind of synonymous with retail over the internet or e-commerce. So I don't see anybody knocking them off that pedestal anytime soon, but it's kind of just interesting to see all the stuff that we've talked about reflected in earnings.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting list. I remember, I think it was 6 months ago, they had another 100 list. And I mean, it's the same names. It's basically exactly what you'd expect.
No surprises.
But the growth numbers are definitely interesting. For our second story today, eMarketer and MediaPost both had two separate breakdowns of a study from Deloitte, which was conducted by Ipsos Mori, about some smartphone usage rates and some other interesting statistics. So the study found that most people check their device approximately 47 times a day. And for younger audiences, such as myself and also a little bit younger than me, that number is 86 times a day, which is up from 82 times reported in 2016. So a lot of phone checking. And meanwhile, nearly 9 in 10 respondents said they check their phone within an hour of waking up in the morning, and almost as many do so right before they go to sleep. They said that these patterns have been consistent over the years. That doesn't surprise me very much at all.
Those numbers are way off.
Yeah.
They're checking it within 2 minutes of them being awake.
Basically,
if the number's 40, it's 140. If you guys are 80, you're 160. And those numbers are off. It's just walk around anywhere in public. And
I look at that phone before I even say good morning to my wife.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, good morning.
Yeah. Even what surprises me about the number too is like when I think about it, I'm not obviously I'm checking for stuff like that, but I mean, the amount of times I just check the time on my phone because I don't have a watch, it's like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to check when I wake up, see what time it is, see if there's anything like that.
I wear a watch. I swear I check the phone more than I wear this. It's unbelievable.
And there are a couple stats about people replacing their phone, so I'll go over this and then Philip can dive in with a couple more stats. But nearly 2/3 of consumers will still replace their phones every 2 years, despite the lack of device subsidies, according to the study. And 63% of consumers have visited a carrier store in the last year, making retail stores an important connection to the mobile consumer. And almost 1 in 5 consumers has visited a carrier store in the last month.
And you can thank Apple for that, for making all of these releases for new versions of their phones into events. I think because at least with some of the more recent iterations of the iPhone, some of the changes to functionality haven't particularly been staggeringly different. Yeah. I think we've seen leaps and bounds in the competitive markets for Samsung phones. They're able to, they're doing some of the same things that Apple phones do, but better. Yeah. And I think, really, if you're an Android versus an iOS person, that's a whole nother, that's become a nice little
a contentious argument, to say the least.
So, just one of the stat I think of this that jumped out at me the most is that smartphone penetration is 82% overall, with ages 18 to 24 having I'm going to make sure I state this correctly, 93% penetration rate for that age group. That means 93% of the people in that age group in the U.S. have a mobile phone.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, if you're not targeting your marketing to make sure that's part of your funnel, you're really missing out. So, one of the things we always look at is, if your site's not mobile friendly, Google's already going to ding you, but that's just a part of how it can be injuring your business model. And then here's just another point. 92% of consumers are reporting using their phone while shopping. So again, if your brand targets that 18 to 24 demographic and you're not targeting stuff via mobile, you're really making a huge error.
Yeah, and on that, before you say that, it's funny because I don't know if you noticed lately, some stores when you're shopping, they're actually jamming your signal a little bit when you're in. And we've noticed a little, because when you're doing price shopping, my wife and I were looking at at furniture. I don't know why, but we're looking at furniture. So she's there, and we're noticing in certain stores you can't get any signal whatsoever to start doing price checking. So I don't know if something's playing in there, but
I've seen a couple local bookstores. When I've been out with my sister a couple of times, she really likes shopping at local bookstores. And I'm somebody who, if I go anywhere, I'll always check to see if the book's on Amazon for cheaper. And there have been signs that I've seen that are like, can't use your phones on the premises because they don't want you doing it, which I get, but
our local Target's notorious for that. Really? A lot of times my wife will be walking around and I won't be able to call her. She wants to say, like, do we need milk or whatever? I can't make a call from within the store.
And you got to wonder if is it the way the store is built, or are they deliberately trying to do that? Because I know, whenever I have my kids like Outback, so we'll go to Outback on occasion, and when you go there, you can't get a signal at all. And we've asked the waitress, and they're like, no, it's just the way the place is built. So they have no real reason to do it, but a Target has a reason to do it. Raymore Flanagan has a reason to do it. So it's just something to think about. It's our tinfoil hats are on.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously I'm the leading component for the conspiracy theories, and to lead right into that, only it hasn't really, the mobile phone boom hasn't translated in people being any more careful with their personal information. Only 13% of people say they never share their personal information. More than 80%, that's despite the fact that more than 80% actually believe that their personal data is used by those companies, and that 78% still believe that personal data is shared with a third party. So they're saying they understand it, but they're still doing it. So I think that people are kind of realizing that this is the cost of doing business when working with a mobile phone, kind of, when you're using these apps and things like that. They're going to harvest this information, and for that you're going to get in return better prices or access to deals, that kind of thing. But again, it's a trade-off. You're giving your personal information and you don't know what they're doing with it.
And to kind of go to the back to mobile marketing as well, if anybody B2B is looking at that and saying, well, it's not really a factor for us anymore, I think the rise of mobile B2B marketing is a very, very underutilized area of a marketing campaign, and it's really untapped. And if you have people actually from a B2B perspective looking at their computer, but how many times are you grabbing your phone and maybe looking for something very similar to what's already on the computer? So keep that in mind, just a little B2B tip there.
And very briefly, we only have about a minute and a half left. These numbers surprised me a little bit in the sense that with Snapchat's third quarter earnings report, about how they didn't want to focus on younger audiences as much, which is what a lot of their demographic and user base is. I think the statistic was 73% are using Snap, and yet we see here that about 93% penetration rate for a younger audience. So I'm surprised.
I'm sure they feel like they've saturated that market.
That's fair. Well, that's it for today's episode of the Commexis Cast Daily. Check us out tomorrow for more of the latest trending news. Have a great day.